Hey everyone, before we get started, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. One of them being the recent community post that was made on the r/cryptoleftist subreddit. I highly recommend, if right now, just pause before you get into it and go to the subreddit if you use Reddit, and look for the community post. It's pinned to the top, and basically what we're doing is asking people to write just a very short blurb, just a paragraph or two even if you want, about what you personally think about the link between blockchain and socialism, or left-wing politics, however you want to say. An example of one of the responses that I've already received from Fuzzgun on Twitter is this quote here. He said, "In my eyes, it's an absolute travesty that blockchain technology has been co-opted by the libertarian right, ultra-capitalists, and scammers, when I can see so clearly the use cases for services of democracy, public utility, and communal ownership. I see it as a technology for communities to take autonomy back that have been robbed of them by international corporations and capitalist exploitation." So I hope that example helps you think about what you would write. It could be completely different than what I just gave, or it could be something similar. However you see it, you can agree or disagree. And what we want to do is do a sort of qualitative analysis of what people say, to find trends that we can share at a later date. But at the moment, what we really need is responses. So if you can, just check it out either right now, pause, go do it really quick. Even if you think your answer is dumb, or if you don't like it, or you're too afraid to, you feel like you're afraid to share your thoughts on it, don't worry, it's totally fine. The point is just to get at an aggregate level what the community thinks about these different ideas. And in that way, we can sort of see where we are in terms of education and see what type of things maybe we need to educate more people on, or maybe things that the community has thought about that maybe I haven't already, or I haven't yet. So if you could do that, that would be really great. You can either do it in the subreddit, or if you are part of the Discord channel, you can do it on there. Or as well, if you want, on Twitter, you can direct message me. My messages are always open, and that works as well. I'll make sure that your response is added to the analysis. Another thing I wanted to mention is that today, as part of my interview with Jonathan Harris, is that I will be burning my own money as part of the interview. So Jonathan leads me through a money burning exercise, and if you want, you can hear the audio through the podcast, but if you want to hear, or if you want to see the actual money burning itself, there is a video that will be posted just for patrons. So if you want to be a patron, it's only $3 a month, and with that you get access to Patreon exclusive posts. So like this video that I will be posting that happened with the money burning. So it's pretty interesting to experience and like see what it's like to burn money. It's a pretty strange thing because it goes against all the sort of economic rationalization that we're sort of ingrained with in our lives, and it's something that's interesting to see. But you can hear it through the podcast in a way, and I try to describe it the best I can. So it's no big issue if you can't, but if you do want to see the video, you can become a Patreon on patreon.com/theblockchainsocialists. It helps me support all the things that I need to do, for example, the hosting costs. So at the moment, I make less than the hosting costs that I pay for the podcast and for the website. So any amount really helps. And if this is something that resonates with you, the message that the blog and the podcast has, then definitely I hope you'll consider, if you have the means to do so that I can keep making the content that I am. So with that being said, let's get started with the interview. All right. Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Blockchain Socialist podcast, and I'm here with another special guest. His name is Jonathan Harris, aka the Money Burning Guy and the holder of the staff. You may not know what that means at the moment, but you will in a little bit. So hi, Jonathan. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? All hail the staff. Thank you.
So, Jonathan, I sort of came upon your profile during Consensus Distributed, where you had a really interesting conversation with a bunch of other panelists, including Brett Scott, who I spoke to a couple weeks ago. And you had a lot of really interesting points, and the fact that your name was the Money Burning Guy, I really had to know more about who this was. So as I did some research, I came upon some of the work that you've done. I have a couple of the books, or the book that you've written, and the magazine that you also helped publish, which we'll go into. But to maybe sort of preface this entire conversation, I think it's important for the audience maybe to know what your views are on money before we talk about why you burn it, what money is, and what currency is. In your book, The Money Burner's Manual, you talk about the difference between currency and money. So maybe that's a good place to start for what is to you the difference between currency and money?
Well, I found it a very helpful distinction to make for a long time. And although, so when I talk about it, I tend not to make the distinction. If you kind of separate currency and money out in discourse, things start to get really complicated and kind of stilted. But I found it a really useful way to create two conceptualizations of the phenomena. So essentially, I regard currency as a kind of earthly form of money. So you can regard money as something that is divine, or whichever word you want to use, but it's outside the material world. And currency is the connection that we have with money, and it's an important important way of conceptualizing it. Obviously, in most conceptualizations of money, people regard money as arising from networks or from basically from nature. But people regard it as either a kind of natural phenomenon coming out of the market or as a human invention. But my conceptualization of money places it in the theological realm. And although that I think probably sounds odd to a lot of people, funnily enough, it has these sorts of ideas that places money in a different sphere are becoming more popular. There's a movement in America at the moment, basically around MMT, and sort of the back thought to that. There's a theological interest in money now. There has been for a while, but it's particularly taken hold at the moment.
MMT is a modern monetary theory.
Modern monetary theory, yeah. So, people are looking for a conception of money. I think, that's the way people work. People look for a conception of money that it kind of slots into their overall ideology. And I don't think obviously the commodity theory of money, which tends to be that which is given credence on the right in terms of libertarianism and certainly on the blockchain for Bitcoin. That doesn't really work so well if you're if you're MMT or if you're kind of soft money person, because it creates too many restrictions around money. So anyway, in order to kind of float off money into this different realm, I then had to conceptualize currency, and I started to think about what the relationship was between currency, which is how money is in the earthly realm, how it is in our material realm, and what the connection would be. And it's been a really useful exercise And I mean, there is some good sort of academic work around this about our conceptions of money. There was a 10-year academic debate that went on outside economics, basically in sociology and anthropology, around this idea of having an overall conception of money, what money means, what we mean when we say it, and the way that ended up. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but the way that dispute ended up is one of the protagonists started to talk about the very idea of money. So that's the part of money, the very idea of money. So what is the idea of money? People tend to regard that as its essence, and that's what I touch. So when I talk about this divine aspect of money, that's what I'm talking about. It's that thing. And currency is the manifestation of that. So in the state theory of money, that's the divine element for the state theory of money people is to say that we have an authority, and the authority creates the unit of account function of money, and then we, through our social networks, through our sociality, we are then able to create a currency, and we are able to use this idea of the unit of account within our relationships.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've probably gone a little bit off track there, but yeah, it's a useful concept, and I would recommend if you're thinking about money, definitely try and split things out, because money, it's a complex and vast phenomenon, and to have that basic little tool that you can split it apart just into these two things, it doesn't work. It doesn't work forever. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm not saying it's definitely like that. But there's definitely money and definitely currency, because we perceive them together. Money's kind of the ultimate category. So it's all within it.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. I mean, there's a lot of different types of currency, but it's almost like it's a very difficult spot to get that currency into the category of money, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we'll talk a little bit more about money just to understand, because you have very interesting ideas around it, and then later we can talk a bit more about how that relates to cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
But so in your book, you mentioned that currency was born first as a psychosexual event. Which is a very interesting way, a very eye-catching way of talking about currency. So I was curious if you can expand what you mean by being a psychosexual event, and your overall, how that relates to the overall theory of money.
Yeah. Do you know what? When people have read my book, and that's normally the question asked, they say, "What do you mean by a psychosexual event?" And I suppose really I mean something quite simple, in the fact that I'm heavily influenced by psychoanalysis, and I think the first currency, or the first symbol, and this is not I'm not alone in this thought. The first symbol arose out of ritual, effectively. I mean, the Freudian stories, the primal killing and totems, so the sacrifice of animals. Firstly, the sacrifice of human beings, which became the sacrifice of animals, and this was the thing that created the cohesion, social cohesion. And not everybody believes those stories, but think of the Christian Church and the symbol of Jesus on the cross. In fact, there's a writer called Bloy who says that every single coin is Christ crucified, and I can't remember the name of the philosopher, but the French. I can't remember his name now. The French philosopher who thought that Christ was our first symbol. So the first a meaningful a meme. There you go. You talked about memes earlier. So I think that I think so. So in terms of a currency being a psychosexual event, then it's very simple, really. It's both a social event, because it requires for a currency to be formed, it requires a society, it requires a group of people, and it's a sexual event because that is the fundamental social dynamic. If you say that in terms of psychoanalysis, nobody's going to disagree with you. I'm sure there might be listeners who think, no, that's not how they see the world. But I think as anybody who's been influenced by by psychoanalysis, I think that's a legitimate statement to make. So that's why I see it like that. I see it as and sexual is a very broad term. It just is, you could say life. I mean, Freud ended up saying life force. You could say life force if you preferred. But it's something that happens in the minds and in our bodies, and it's that conjunction of those things. So between many bodies and many minds, and that's what creates currency. That's honestly, I think it's although it seems an odd thing to say, I think it's utterly uncontroversial. That currency is fundamentally in its most pure essence, currency is a psychosexual event, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get to the nub of it, the clearest way that I could describe what I thought currency was, and that's it really. I still think, I know it sounds so, but I still think it's true. I can't see any other way of describing it. It's more accurate.
Is it that sort of the way it sounds like to me is that there's also sort of an effect, like there's an effect on like your children almost, to like money gets sort of a divine sense as it gets passed down through generation.
Yeah.
Is that something you think?
I can say that I think money is divine in the sense. I mean, it depends on the word divine. It's a very loaded word.
Yeah.
Again, people will not. People have different interpretations of what I mean. But in essence, I mean that money is something that exists as prima materia. It's deep down at a metaphysical level in the universe. It's beyond the atoms and the molecules. It's really ingrained in what it is to be. So that's how I conceptualize it. I think that's possibly why academics are, it's very flattering that they're interested in my ideas, but I think that's probably the key thing that differentiates the way I think about money. Is I really put it. My description of money, the closest I've come to a definition, is to call it an aspect of being. So I regard money as an aspect of being, and currency as a psychosexual event. And obviously those two things are linked, because without sex we wouldn't be, as an individual human being. Right. I regard money as in that divine sphere. So some things that are mysterious and outside of human comprehension, but nevertheless seem to wrap around and inhere with all our lives.
So in your interview during Consensus Distributed, you had a really nice quote. You said, "If the whole point of capitalism is to leave it, then what's the point of capitalism?" And I thought that was an amazing thing to say at a cryptocurrency type of event, for one. But I think it's also a really good summary. It really gets at the point if you're talking to someone who's maybe skeptical of anti-capitalism, or like doesn't understand what it means to be anti-capitalist. So I was curious what your thoughts on capitalism in general, and do you consider what you do in terms of money burning as sort of an anti-capitalist activity?
The short answer is no. I don't consider money burning an anti-capitalist activity, in the sense that without capitalism, I wouldn't be able to burn money really. I think that quote for me gets to something important, which kind of gets to the question, which is the idea of function. So in the sense, you're asking what is the function of capitalism, and actually capitalism is a set of functions. So it's a set of functions that has no function. Yeah? And that that relates to money, because most people describe money as they use the word just, which I hate. They say money is just a set of functions. Money is what money does. That's kind of the view, and that's a view that's across the payments industry and the crypto space a lot. And that I think that quote about capitalism asks which is why it's so powerful. It asks a very pertinent question, because once you get to that line at the end of functions, it's saying, well, what is there? What is the context for this? So I think that certainly money burning speaks to that, in terms of that it puts a full stop on those sets of functions. It's a deliberate removal of money from the system of flow, which makes no sense within the logic of capitalism. I think that's really important. Yeah. So it exists outside the logic of that function. I'd probably go off into talking about money burning too much if I carry on down that line, because that's what I related to. It's about the idea of function, and about the idea in money burning that you are, and I use the word, the word is doing nothing. Now it's important to understand that doing nothing is not a glib phrase. To do nothing is an impossibility. It's a very loaded phrase, to do nothing. But if you can do nothing, so if you can actively do nothing, which that's a big contradiction, and that's what I'm arguing you do when you burn money, is you do nothing. Then that alone, doing nothing, speaks directly to that quote about capitalism.
Yeah.
Because and all this talk about David Graeber's just started talking about work again. He released something about work, and it's we are trapped in this mindset of work and being productive and efficient, and we need to think more about what this means in terms of functions and waste, and why we're doing all these jobs. And Graeber yesterday was just yesterday, I would advise you to check it out. But he says that the problem with capitalism and with the fact we're destroying the planet, it has to do not with our hedonism, not with all the crazy stuff we do and we like to do, but with our puritanism. And we do have a pure. I mean, the reactions to money burning show you that we have this Puritan thing where the idea that you waste something, you waste time, or you do nothing is anathema. It's almost to capitalism. It's the antithesis of capitalism, which must be productive. Every action you take must be entrepreneurial and productive. And of course, we don't live our lives like that as individuals, and people who do tend to be very unhappy.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of, I guess, for me, it sounds very anti-capitalist because of exactly what you said, because it goes against this sort of the rational actor in the economy as humans being purely rational actors that want to maximize their own profits and revenues, as if we're all just like companies competing on a market, whereas burning money is almost actively hurting your place, and it's sort of it goes against that notion that sort of classical economics is based on.
I mean, I've totally described it as in opposition to capitalism and all that, and you can find that in my writings. But I think that ultimately, I think that to oppose capitalism is to recognise capitalism. Yeah. And so I'm interested in enveloping capitalism. And I think that is ultimately how we will change from capitalism is the organising principle. So I very much see our problem as we're in a spiritual crisis fundamentally. Is the way I see it, rather than a political or economic crisis.
Yeah.
I think that the solution is a spiritual one. I don't mean we need to become one religion or another, but we have now no ideology that we can connect to. Nothing. There's nothing outside of capitalism to break that idea that we are permanently in exchange relations as rational actors. Yeah. And yet everybody knows that that's not true. I mean, we just don't act like that in our most intimate relations, in relations we really value. So it's an odd situation where we are confronted with the truth of it in our daily lives, and yet we fail to recognise it as a social level.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition to the next question, because you mentioned as well in the book about capitalism being a cultic religion and like comparing it to a cultic religion, and I think your point on Puritanism relates that pretty well, because it feels like sometimes you have to just go through the motions of capitalism all the time just because you have to do it in like a puritanical sense almost.
Yeah. Well, I use that. That's a great quote from Nigel Dodd, whose book he wrote in 2014, which is called The Social Life of Money. And it's a major contribution to thought on money, probably one of the greatest books on money ever written, in my opinion. And it expounds basically all the sort of various theories about money that have been explored over the past forever. And it contains many surprises. Because you tend to do. I studied economic history at the LSE, and we really didn't talk about money that much. I found it very frustrating. You just accept what money is. It's just you don't think about it. You just get on with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is this enormous thought, and Nigel's written this amazing book, which everybody, if you are into money, capitalism, capitalism or socialism, whichever your preference is, or the crypto space, you must read The Social Life of Money. It's a fantastic book, and in the end of it, he comes up with this quote, which is based on Walter Benjamin, and he says that that capitalism is a purely cultic religion. So what he means by that is that there is no redemption at the end of it. There's nothing. It's just ritual for ritual's sake. There is nothing. There's no redeeming part of it. And that definitely feels like capitalism. You're trapped in this. It's certainly in a consumer capitalism. You're trapped on this treadmill, which is the common way of talking about it. Yeah. And so, of course, the answer to that is that myself and my friends have come up with is to create a better cult. Yeah. So yeah, we like the cult stuff. But so when we do Church of Burn, it's quite a culty. But I like to think of it as a conscious cult.
My next question I was about to ask you is about your counter cult to capitalism, the Church of Burn.
The money burning. So money burning. The quote is money burning is capitalism's missing redemption. So that's the way out, and it goes back to that earlier question you posed about capitalism. Because the way out of capitalism is to burn money. It's quite. It's cool,
Do you suggest Jeff Bezos burns all of his money?
Well,
in a big fire.
So one of the magazines, one of the favourite posters I did for the magazines says "Pity the Rich," and I like it because Jeff Bezos, if he wanted to burn money, if he wanted to burn 20 quid, yeah. Now I burn 20 quid, it hurts. You know what I mean? 20 quid is a it's not a huge amount, but it hurts. So if Bezos wanted to burn the equivalent of my 20 quid, that's a big bonfire. You know what I mean? That's going to be a lot though for him to hurt that much. You know. So yeah, that's why you pity the rich, because unfortunately they're kind of ruled out of you know, by their riches from the money burning cult. You know, it's very difficult for them. Of course, we welcome them, but it is kind of tricky. You know, I mean, it's a play on the you know, rich man through the eye of a needle, and passing through the eye of a needle.
So then it really sounds like burning money came out of a sort of almost just like realization or distaste of the status quo of capitalism in our daily lives. And then you started this or helped start this Church of Bern. So I was wondering, maybe you can explain what the Church of Bern is and what you guys do regarding burning money.
Well, the Church of Bern, I mean, it's kind of my favorite thing that I never imagined I would do in my life, but we
start a religion.
Start a religion, and that's what we're doing. You know what I mean? It's like it's just tremendous fun. So it is. So I'll talk about the last one we did, which was so spectacular. Just before last December, just before the COVID thing really started taking off, because we had massive plans for it this year, but unfortunately, like everything, it's been put on hold. But so we have a synod. We had a synod, and we had Vinay Gupta, who is Ethereum dude, and we had David Graeber, and we had a guy called Dan Edelstein from the Host Street Central Bank, who'd done this amazing art thing of buying up a load of payday debt and then blowing it up in a van. And Brett Scott was your previous guest, was hosting this synod. So our guests talked about how we would save the world, and that was their question: how do you save the world? So we had a synod, and we had. So a synod basically is the church as a church meeting where the bishops go and they talk about issues of doctrine. So that was our version of it. And then we had the what we call the service. So we have the synod and the service, and the service is it's effectively, so it's performances, hymns about sacrifice. But to give you a flavour, it includes a confessional. So you confess your money sins to our resident goddess, Melusine, who is the twin mermaid. There's a whole story around that, but I won't. But it will take a minute.
What counts as a money sin?
Well, that's it. Who knows? But you found 20 quid and you didn't give it back, or whatever. You overspent on something, or it could be anything you feel guilty about. You didn't pay your bill. You haven't paid, anything you like. Is a money sin, and then depending on how she feels, you either get forgiven or don't get forgiven. But that was a kind of fun section, and then throughout this we have sermons, which are selected readings from some of the amazing books on money in my library. So much stuff that people, who think they know about money don't know about in terms of their thinking. But people like Georges Bataille, who wrote an amazing book called The Accursed Share, which is probably the book, if you want to understand money burning, that's the book to read. It's about the role of sacrifice in relation to sovereignty, which is another thing I talked about at CoinDesk. Anyway, so back to Church of Bern. So that we have the service, and to give you an idea, so it's not like po-faced and kind of like a church service that you normally think of, because we round it off before the ritual. The last act is a sex magic act, which this year was utterly extraordinary, and definitely takes people to the audience to a different place. What we're after with doing it, the Church of Bern, is to what the theatres call it is break the fourth wall or something. But it's effectively it's about making the audience participants. It's crossing that line. So there's various ways and means of doing that. So yeah, we psychologically pummel the audience into a state of immediacy and suggestibility, and then we come back in and we do the ritual, which is we have we have an amazing droning sound called the 111 hertz, which kind of really fucks with your head. And we have like an altar, and it all goes off. It's yeah. There was how many people? So there was an audience of 150. Generally, about half the people burn, and we had about in terms of staging it, I think we had just about 20 people. So we had musicians and actors and all that stuff. So it was a big deal, and it's an extraordinary thing to be able to do. If anybody is ever in London when one's going on, and or wants me to come and do one, then yeah, I'm definitely up for it. It's quite an amazing thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a very fun time. Did you guys just like?
Yeah. It is fun, and yeah, it's like capitalism is compared to capitalism, our cult is a lot more fun. It's sexier. It's it really is. You're better off burning your money, honestly, than spending it. Spending it's nice, but burning it's better.
Yeah. So is this really like a organic creation of different rituals, or did you take from?
Oh well, there is a kind of serious story there. It's so. It's kind of like a magical thing where I just met these people who were kind of we clicked. The group is called Discordianism. So I don't know if your readers will not know that. So that was it's a long history to get into now, but it's involving people like Robert Anton Wilson and magical thinking, and just really thinking outside the box. There's a libertarian strand to it as well. The American Discordians were very libertarian, so it's a kind of cross-pollinating thing. I would say most of this sort of the wave of Discordianism that's happened in the UK has got a kind of left-wing bent or left-wing feel to it. But it's not exclusively so, and I think that's what's so attractive about it. But anyway, I met these people, and they were interested in what I was trying to do, and so we ended up doing. So there's a band called the KLF, who are Discordian to the core. And I don't know if your listeners will know them, but the KLF were a number one band in the world, and in 1994 they burned £1 million on the Scottish island of Jura. This is the thing they're famous for, but they've had number one hits. They've had, they did a song with Tammy Wynette, was their biggest hit. Anyway,
yeah.
So the KLF are kind of involved in many of the around the edges of many of the capers that we get up to. I forgot what I was telling you about that, but yeah. So they're kind of King Discordians. Yeah.
So the other project that you also work on is the magazine. So Burning Issue, I have it with me right here. I have to say it's a very beautifully printed type of magazine, and I also have my own 23-pound note inside that I'm sure I will be able to spend at many different places. But maybe you can explain what the Burning Issue is. It's really like a magazine. I had no idea that you could write this much about burning money. I really had no idea. Just every single inch of every page is about burning money in some kind of way.
Well, again, it started off as a kind of the idea was I thought I'd do a newsletter for money burners because I'd found about 8 money burners in the world who were kind of doing it in a semi-regular way. So I thought I'd do a newsletter. That'd be a fun thing to do, and it got out of hand. So I did a fanzine at first, and the idea was that it was a magical invocation. So the idea is that you create a magazine as it's build it and they will come kind of idea. So you create the magazine and then the market for the magazine comes. Yeah. So see, there aren't enough money burners, or there weren't enough money burners to warrant doing what is 168 pages or something. It's like 168 pages.
It's pretty big, yeah.
Glossy magazine with Yeah, so it was a major task. I'm very, very proud of it. There's about 50 people involved, so I don't mind, although it's my project, I don't mind bragging about it because, I had, so on the academic side, got Noam Uren, contributed a piece, Ollie Berg, and these guys are top philosophers of money. They're brilliant people, and they were very kind. I mean, intrigued by the idea, obviously, and very kind to contribute the pieces to it. And Brett Scott and Max Haven and Cassie Thornton. Again, Professor Max is a brilliant guy, and Cassie, amazing artist. So Max, you would like Max very much if you're inclined to the left. So Max has just published a book on revenge capitalism. And his theory is that capitalism is a big system of revenge. So anyway, lots of people from lots of different areas interested in that kind of thing, and we were able, with my friend Jonathan Greet, who takes a lot of photos at the Church of Bern, and my other friend Michelle Ollie, who's got experience, because I have no experience of editing magazines, who knew what she was doing, fortunately, and we managed to create this thing, and I hope it impressed you, because it did me. It looks kind of cool, and hopefully it's interesting as well. Yeah.
No, it really impressed me, and I really liked.
It makes you believe
going through it.
Believe there are money there, and they're doing this thing. Yeah.
There's something about feeling it in my hands, like
absolutely.
this.
Well, yeah, it's also the materiality of money as well, and obviously in crypto and e-money and the cashless society, what Brett was talking about, it's really important, and the idea of materiality, having something that can't be captured in data. You can't capture every aspect of having a relationship with something that is of a material nature, simply by functions, by replicating it digitally, and we need to recognise that. We need to understand that there is some other aspect of our relationship with things going on.
So I think now maybe we can transition a bit more into the crypto world, now that we understand the Jonathan Harris theory of money. So I was curious just about your thoughts, because I think everyone knows this at this point, but a lot of right-wing libertarians tend to be really interested in crypto, especially in Bitcoin world and in other cryptocurrencies, and they tend to gear towards Austrian economics and those sort of Austrian economic thinkers. And so I thought it was really interesting in your book how you mentioned that a lot of economists, they act as if economics is really like a hard science similar to mathematics or physics, and that there are just parts of it that aren't manipulable. They're just like natural phenomena. So I was curious, I mean, like, understanding that, why you think it is that a lot of these types of people in crypto tend to get interested in this type of thinking around economics, and what sort of flaws do you see with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a natural way for somebody who's maybe, the guys, the crypto guys, obviously technically astute, and they understand the idea of writing a computer program, and they understand the notion of function, and that really that forms a lot of the context of their thinking. So I think that if you can have a clear story around function in money, and you think, like I was saying, if you capture all the data that's present, all the information, then you create a contained story, and it is a coherent story. So Hayek, there's many things I could criticize Hayek for, but within the framework that he sets for himself, there is a coherence there. His sets of ideas work within their own terms, and funnily enough, the main thing, one of the things I strongly criticize Hayek for, a couple of things. be fair. Firstly, money. His conceptualization of money is nothing. It's really a dismissal of money. Even though he wrote one of the like he did that paper on money, and everybody thought he'd gone mad when he did it. That money is a product of the market, because we were still the Keynesian consensus was still present around then, and money was an invention of the state. And even when he suggested that, but that what that does, it doesn't really, it didn't really get to the, for me, it doesn't get to the essence of money. What it does is it subsumes ideology in his theology of the markets, and that's the way I see him. There's some really interesting work on sort of a critique of Hayek, in terms that he's fundamentally a theological thinker, and I kind of like that. He certainly didn't like psychoanalysis, so I don't like him anymore. But it's not fair. I think it's very important to engage with Hayek as one of the leading libertarian thinkers, because he makes powerful, coherent arguments. And if you want to argue against him, you need to understand what he says and think about what the weaknesses are in his arguments. And certainly for me, the major weakness is his ideas about money. And he doesn't, he thinks in that functional, logical way about it, without any idea that there's this experiential element to money, which there is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone on about Hayek there, but you were asking me about.
Right. I mean, it's sort of related. I mean, I was asking about how crypto people sort of move towards Austrian economics, and I assume they probably adhere to a similar view of money as Hayek, and that sort of gets them into that.
It's a really interesting thing, because you can effectively describe the majority, I think, of crypto conceptualization of money as it's basically digital gold.
Yeah.
And the store of value function of money is the thing they regard as most important. I've certainly seen this argument made a lot. So they don't really ignore the unit of account. But the strange thing is, for me, the unit of account function is the primary function of money, and that's the way it's for a lot of people who aren't sort of Bitcoin enthusiasts. They tend to go for the commodity theory. But the interesting thing is that in Bitcoin now, for the really hardcore Bitcoin evangelists, what they want the Bitcoin to do is to replace the dollar. The dollar is the primary unit of account for the world. And so they want the dollars to be measured in Bitcoins rather than Bitcoins to be measured in dollars. You know what I mean? That's their ultimate game. Yeah. They don't want to be. They want to be the new central bank that's this automated system. That's their vision, their heaven on earth. It
sounds like it's frustrating for you.
It's frustrating because when you're thinking about money, you've got to you've got to be consistent in it, and then they're not consistent in that. You've not really got to pull it apart and think about the store of value, the unit of account function, on which one of those you think it is. How do you think that's arisen? I mean, that's where I've spent sort of the past 10 years thinking about those issues. It kind of gets what people seem to want in the crypto space is they want an answer to it, and then they want to move on because they recognise it's a fundamental problem. What gives value to Bitcoin? Is it because it stores value, which is also an odd kind of question, or is it because it can ultimately act as a unit of account for the world? It's very, very important. Then on the other side, kind of outside the Bitcoin, outside the crypto community, the payments community, they're really concerned with the medium of exchange function of money. They don't really get into the sort of stuff I get into, the deep psychological stuff. They kind of think, well, money's a medium of exchange. Payments money for them is a technological problem. They kind of got to fit it in with the banks, with the regulations. And the way people exchange, the way people interact, scams, all that sort of stuff. And you've got to find a secure system to work within that. So they don't have the ideology of the cryptos, this driving force. But none of these seem to make any sense. People seem to pick and choose which aspect of money they want to put at the core of their ideology, but then they don't follow through.
Whatever's convenient.
No consistency there. Yeah, and that's definitely, I definitely find that frustrating. And there. And the problem is as well is there's no answer. There's no truth. There's no obvious truth to discover in a scientific way. I think the truth of money relies on your own relationship with the divine or God or the truth or however you want to put it. But those mystical qualities of your life, which some people would deny, and some people don't like to talk about. But that's the point, that you're governing values. So it's as I said, it's a religious and spiritual thing, and you've got to make the things tally. Yeah, you've got to make, because what I think possibly the one of the things that frustrates leftists is that they see this sort of financial logic coming out of capitalism, and everything becomes a function and gets pulled into the cult, into the machine, and so all values are destroyed. All human values are destroyed by capitalism. Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that is something to be concerned about. But to do that, to tackle that, you have to move outside that function. You have to be aware of the logic and how it operates. And the logic exists within finance, within money itself, in how we exchange. There's a great quote. I'll give you one more great quote. I'll shut up in a second, but I'll give you one more great quote, which directly relates. There's a paper by Joachim Kalker called on the Materiality of Money. And it's one I use all the time. It's relevant to Bitcoiners, and I definitely recommend, if you're in the crypto space, you should read it. I'll give you a link to it.
Sure.
Because it talks about this idea that there is something mysterious, there's something beyond our ability to capture it in data, in our exchange, in our social exchange of money, and what it means. And the quote is that the tendering of a few coins across a counter opens an abyss that reaches to the heart of the universe. And I think never a truer word has been spoken than that. And that's the depth that you've got to operate at with money. And so, yeah, I have a frustration, definitely, that people, that nobody really is, particularly in the crypto space, who like to pronounce on it, that nobody really thinks in depth about money. And those specifically, specifically for the crypto space, is that issue, that friction between store of value and the unit of account, and they're the questions they need to look at and answer. I mean, we could go into CBDC now, to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
That's
so
really
because I think when it comes to money burning in a normal cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or something else, you can do that. You can burn cryptocurrencies. I think there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but usually you can find a way to burn your cryptocurrency. But now we have sort of what's going on is this synthesis of cryptocurrencies and the central banking system, where the central banks want to sort of gain the different advantages that cryptocurrency and blockchain is able to provide, but within their own context. So they're proposing this idea called CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies. And you recently had this petition out that you shared, asking for the Bank of England to create a sort of functionality for any holder of CBDC to be able to burn their CBDC. So I'm curious to hear from you how that project's been going, and why is being able to burn your CBDC so important?
Well, I just noticed the Bank of England's were putting out a consultation paper on it, and I did think, oh, I should really put my put a letter in there.
Yeah.
I think, funnily enough, I think in the crypto space, people will understand the idea a lot better, because I think probably the crypto folks regard it as sort of an offshoot of the design of Bitcoin, the fact that you can destroy it, it maybe wasn't put in there deliberately, but I think they recognise that it's for them, it's an expression of the ultimate property rights. You have if you've got the right to destroy something, then that's an expression of your property rights.
Yeah.
That's not the way I see it. In a sense, I think they're right, but I think there's a bigger question, which is it's sacrifice. It's the key thing. Is the ability to sacrifice. The sacrifice ultimately is in ultimate connection with sovereignty. For me, that's the way I see the world. And so if you want a currency that will allow and encourage the sovereign individual, which is exactly what Bitcoin has won, then if you want a digital bank currency. Then however you design that currency, you must include in it the capacity for someone to destroy it. I put this idea up, and I think for people, weirdos like me who really like to think about money, it's an interesting idea, and it's an obvious idea. And funnily enough, I mean, the bank is always the bank. In various countries there are different laws related to burning money. But the Bank of England has never prohibited money burning, or never sought to prohibit money burning. So it's totally legal to burn money. Defacing it is illegal, but you don't really get told off for it. So
yeah.
And I definitely regard it as people regard it as a silly thing, but I think it's fundamental within the design of the currency. I mean, it's not saying that people will want to destroy their currency. And in the letter, I did argue that. I said it's not about you putting in functions that people will want their money to do. It's about what you design being money in its fullest extent. And of course, if you want the thing that's money in its fullest extent for us now is paper cash. And if you want to replicate paper cash in a digital form, then you've got to be able to destroy it. I was very flattered to have Nigel Doyle and Noam Nuran and various other academics and Brett sign the letter, and we stuck it into the bank. We got thanked by the bank for our interest. I think possibly if it had just been money burning guy on his own sending a letter, they might have been able to sort of stick it in the recycling bin. But with all the other names on it, hopefully they'll feel like they need to respond to it. And certainly if they design it without the capacity. Just to fill it. So Brett Scott did has a wonderful piece in Burning Issue, the magazine, which considers how it's virtually impossible to destroy bank money. Yeah. So if you got money in your bank account, the only way you can destroy it really is by taking it out in cash and burning the cash. There's no way you have to spend it. There's no way to destroy it, because you can move it between accounts. You could send it to a charity. You know what I mean. But you can't destroy it. It exists. It's like a zombie force. Yeah, it's this unkillable thing. And philosophically, that's really fucking important. Oh, sorry, I'm not sure.
It's fine.
I think fortunately my academic friends understand this, and so it's cool. So I don't know if Andrew Bailey, because I was kind of hoping it'd be Carney still, because I kind of like Carney, but we've got this new guy Andrew Bailey, so I'm hopefully I'll certainly send him a copy of the magazine if he wants to investigate further.
Do you know if how far along in that project they are? It seems like it's still a bit early stages.
Really early days. Yeah, it's really early days. So they've done the consultation closed like a month ago, I think. So that's just pulling in people from the payments industry and and sort of touching base to get the feelings out there. So yeah, it's it's a long way off.
Yeah.
But I think China's much more advanced, isn't it, in its CBDC? But they won't really care about people's sovereignty, will they? They'll just do what they want.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about it certainly more, and it's been a lot of studies have shown that China's a bit farther ahead.
Canada, I saw something from the Canadian Central Bank the other day, so I think they're a little more on the ball with it. But I'm impressed with the Canadian paper. I don't know if you read that, but they were talking about competing in terms of privacy, of making it a really private currency. And I just thought, if you want a private currency to buy a bunch of drugs or whatever, you're not going to use a central bank digital currency, are you? You're going to use Bitcoin or one of the even one
just
of the
cash.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure they're barking up the right tree with trying to make it this super privacy currency. Yeah. Effectively, the state's going to have access to the information anyway. So
yeah, I mean, it could just be this sort of like the idea of Brett Scott's around the war on cash. Just sort of make it as similar to cash as possible to reduce, to sort of settle people's qualms, maybe.
Well, yeah,
transition, but
I think that's right. But they always maintain that they're not going to get rid of cash. But I mean, I'm fully with Brett on that. We've got to kind of be very vigilant about that. And I always say to Brett that that's, if you make cash sacred, which is obviously what we're trying to do in the money burning, that's the best way to defend it. If you make it a sacrament, they can't get rid of it.
So, speaking of money being a sacrament, I thought now would be a good chance to reveal that I will now be partaking in the divine ritual of burning money. So what I have here, am I allowed to take a video as I burn money, or should I?
It's your ritual, and so the rules are yours to determine. If you could record the serial number for me, and the amount, it's £20, isn't it? If you could record the serial number for me before you get into your ritual, that'd be really handy, because I run a thing called the Record of Burn, which is a list of all the serial numbers and people who've burnt money over the years. So I think we got £7 million now. We've included a few burns from the news and that sort of thing, and the KLF and that. But
sure.
So another 20 quid would really be good.
So maybe I have 2 candles which I'll light. Yeah.
So if you want to, I mean, what I would say to you and anyone else who considers burning money is try to put yourself as fully in the moment as you can. I mean, that's certainly what we tried to do with Church of Burn. It's simply a process of bringing people into the now, and that, in a sense, is very much what one of the things that money burning symbolizes, because you are, by burning money, you are cutting off a connection to the past, the value of the past, and the value in the future. Money has a direct relationship with time. So I think it's about feeling, which standard sort of meditative exercises of just feeling your place on the world, feeling your bum on the seat of your chair, or your feet on the ground, your arms on the desk, feeling the material world around you, and then pushing yourself into that moment and immersing yourself in the moment.
So I have here, on top of my Money Burner's Manual and my Burning Issue magazine, I have a soup bowl, which I'll leave for the burning money inside, and 2 candles. And then I have a £20 note here. The serial number is BD 27774521. So this will be added into the ledger.
Yep, that will be
money.
Good burn.
Yeah. This is a £20 note. Although I'm not in the UK, it's still painful because I would like to go back to the UK, and I will probably have to exchange my money for pounds again, which will be annoying. So it is still a small sacrifice for me. But all right, I will try to get this here. Ooh. It's curling.
Yeah, they curl. The polymer ones curl.
Oh. Oh, there it goes. Oh, still burning. Oof. Oof. So there it is. Still curling in my soup bowl. You can try to burn it a little bit more.
The polymer ones last a long time. They when we changed from paper to polymer, we had to adjust our rituals because they burn for ages. Yeah.
Okay, now it's caught on fire and it's going. Wow. It's really like oh, it's a nice burn.
Cool.
I'll send you the video.
Thank you. You like the color of the flame? It's a good one on the polymer ones.
Yeah, it's a bit maybe difficult to see in the video, but it is slightly different color. Wow.
How's that feel, man?
It's very I mean, like as if I don't know. I've never partaken in any sort of sacrifice much, like at least in this way. So it's definitely a new feeling. It feels like if I think about, you know, the money.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that everyone, including myself, have to earn money in some way in order to get by in life and pay our bills, pay our rent, and here I am just
Existing
burning
out
it away.
all of that for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I do the Church of Bene, I often say to people that the one, you know, the thing you should expect when you burn money is nothing, because that's what you'll get.
Yeah.
So you know.
It's also making a very interesting sound. So I will remember this burning the next time I go to the UK. As I'm pulling out, as I'm paying for the currency exchange, I will remember this moment.
Yeah.
It's almost out. So, and then here I have underneath, I have the Money Burner's Manual, second edition, and the burning issue. So it's a very nice magazine from Jonathan. Has anyone tried burning the 23-pound note yet?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about. I think most people just kind of leave it there. They don't even take it out. But yeah, that was a lot of fun making that. So I did that, and Johnny helped me on that one. My friend Johnny. Yeah, it was. I was proud of that. It's a nice note, and there's a little quote on the note because it's dedicated to a sex worker called Laura Lee, who sadly died quite young while I was doing the magazine. And the famous quote she had, she was a sex worker, and she was a sex workers' rights activist, and so she became in the last few years of her life, she'd put herself in the press, so she got a lot of abuse from people. People were very mean to her. But I followed her on Twitter, and I found her a charming woman, and intelligent and lovely. And so when she died, it was kind of sad. One of those new things you experience, the death of someone on social media that you don't really know, and that's something we sort of, a new experience for us. And but anyway, so she had this quote, and it was a cracking quote, which is that because she used to be a banker, she was a bank manager, and then she went into sex work from that. So the quote she always used was that she gave up, that she started sex work to throw off the stigma of being a banker. Yeah, she had my respect in that moment.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So yeah, you'll probably get people. So the question people always ask when they talk about money burning, well, the first one is usually about charity. So expect that. Why didn't you give it to charity? It's usually
I sacrificed it for to the gods of capitalism.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a very fun experience and a very new one for me. Thanks so much for helping lead my first burning.
That's no problem, man. You're very, very welcome.
And for taking the time for the interview. That's all the questions I have at the moment. So maybe the last thing is you can share with people where they can learn more and find more about your work, follow you on social media and such.
Yeah. So if I'm on Twitter as John1100. You can go to burnyourmoney.org. You can go to churchofburn.org, or you can go to burningissue.net. If you search Jonathan Harris money burning guy on Google, you'll probably get to me pretty easy. There's a few pieces on Medium if you're interested in a short, well, not that short, but a basic introduction to it. And I have a blog as well. So if you're interested in the more academic stuff, and I do academic rambles, I would suppose is the best way of putting it, on various issues of money. Then I have a blog at which is John1100 at blogspot.com. But just hit me up on any of those. If you just search my blog, I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah, sure. I'll put the links in the description in the post.
Cool.
So people can find it. All right. Thanks a lot, and
thank you.
And let's stay in touch.
Cheers.